everybody, Bonehead for the Bonehead podcast, and we've got a very cool unbox and review view today. Our friends at Waia Games have got a Kickstarter coming up. Now, it's going live later this week, I believe on the Friday, so this should be going live on Black Friday, and I imagine this video will be going live Black Friday as well. And they are dropping their next team. So we've seen some great teams from Waia Games. We've seen Dark Elves, we've seen High Elves, we've recently seen their Amazon team, and they're staying in the jungles for this one, the other Lustria team, Lizardmen. So let's have a look at the Kickstarter for this team. So it is a full Lizardman team with a few cool stars as well. And we've got the models to show off in just a moment. But before we jump into that, we always have a look at the Kickstarters to see what's going on. Now this is a private preview, so I don't think anything's going to have changed by the time it goes live on Kickstarter, but it may have done. But Guillermo seemed pretty much locked in on what this was going to be. So this is for the Lizardman team, Reptiles Warriors. So Waia Games are doing a full-on Lizardman team for Blood Bowl. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can see a bit of a better picture here. So I know what you're going to think. What's in it and how much is it going to be? So €75 will be for the team. Now, these models are cast in resin, and this is something that we've seen from Waia Games many times. The resin that they use is brilliant, and it's their specific resin, and it is cast. The models we've got are pre-production prints. Absolutely fine with that. They're very cool models, but what's going live in the Kickstarter is cast resin. So we've seen the resin from Waia Games before, and it is absolutely fantastic. So €75 will get you the team and Kickstarters. They've got some other bigger bundles that you can do, but entry point €75 plus postage for the team is exactly where you expect to be for third party Blood Bowl teams. In fact, we talked about this on the podcast going live this weekend, how much third party teams are, and €75 for a team of this quality is very good. And if you think about it from a Games Workshop point of view, 2 boxes and a big guy will set you over that amount. So let's have a look at the actual team. So like I said, this is, you know what, let's just zoom in here. There we go. Let's do it that way around so we can see the models a bit better. We've got this Lizardman team to look at. Now they've got some beautifully painted examples on there. They've got some cool looking renders as well. We've got the actual resin models to look at, and I've primed a couple so that we can get some good shots of detail. Again, if you watch the podcast, you'll see me talk about that as well. So the team has got 8 skinks, 2 chameleons, 6 sauruses, and one of the coolest croxagores I have ever seen. There are some really good croxagores out there for Blood Bowl. The Games Workshop one, third party ones. This one is very cool. Like, it's definitely up there in my top. I'm not going to do a top 5 croxagores. I might have already done it. Anyway, this guy's going to feature in there. So, from an aesthetic style, and I mean, it's if you are like me, if you are from the golden era of Games Workshop, the 90s, Warhammer 5th edition had a box set. You had Bretonnian Knights against Lizardmen. And the Saurus in those didn't look the way they look these days. They looked kind of like this. They had these round heads, the snub nose heads that these guys absolutely smack off, and I thought it was awesome. When I opened them up and looked at them, I was like, oh wow, this looks like a modernized and better version of the 5th edition Lizardmen. And I was like, this is wicked. The skinks are brilliant as well, tons of detail, really good posing on all the models. Every one of these sculpts is separate, every one of these sculpts is individual, and every one of these sculpts should arrive in one piece, which is just phenomenal. Like, we lived I'm from the golden age of Games Workshop, the 90s. We are currently living in the golden age of Blood Bowl, when you can get a team like this, and the only thing you have to do is glue it to the base. It's just the best time to be a gamer. And the chameleon skinks are wonderful little sculpts. You've got the traditional tongue catching the ball, and you've got this guy here, who I really like, who's just kind of hovering, balancing on his own tail. So you've got a monster of a big guy. You've got 6 brilliant bruisers for those blockers, a ton of great skinks, and 2 of the most fun chameleons I've ever seen. And that's the core team. The beautiful thing about Kickstarter, especially the way that Waia Games are doing it, you get a few extras as well. So if you back the team, you'll have the stretch goals. You guys know how Kickstarter works by now. We've got a couple of those to look at as well, which is pretty cool. So as you go down, you can see You've got the renders for the Saurii, you've got the Croxagore there, and each one of these sculpts is brilliant. And they've got that, I'm going to be honest, the models look even better in person. The paint scheme is really good, but when you look at the actual casting and you look at the actual detail of the model, I don't know, there's just something special about the potential of it. Like, you got the guy with the scar over the eye. The team itself is really, really, really fantastic. I'll tell you what, we'll skip down to the stretch goals and then we'll have a look at the actual models, because this Kickstarter will probably be live for you right now, so you can go on and have a look at each of the individual sculpts. Come on, okay, and another great sculpt. And then we've got the skinks, and I love the skinks. Good mixture of headdresses and no headdresses as well. So the fact you get 8 in the team is I don't know, it's what, more than enough probably. Are you ever going to run 8 skinks when you've got access to chameleons as well? Potentially. And that's perfect. I think that's really good. So what are you looking at? Like 6, 7, 8, 9, 17 models, I think, with the team, which is more than enough. Right, and as you work your way down, I believe we come to the chameleons, which I love. Chameleon skink on the ball, fantastic. Just a really good positional. I know it's not as fast. I know shadowing on a movement 7 piece is not as good. But you've got to take one, just because passing 3+, for a stunty, you've got the best chance at having a stunty quarterback in Blood Bowl. And, you know, with a team like Lizards, which is just phenomenally powerful anyway, I don't know, I love the opportunity there. Right, here we go. We've got the stretch goals here. So you get ball, you get dice. Oh, the dice dragon. Oh, that's cool. I hadn't noticed that before. You get coin markers, you get footprints, you get the big guy markers. Now, these I really love. So, I mean, we've all been there, right? You put your big guy down on the square. Actually, this one's pretty reasonable as far as I go. You know how big I like to do the big guys in Blood Bowl. But we're decking out the studio at the moment, and I'm looking at this, and Milton joked that we should get some, like, marble busts of Blood Bowl players. So I might have to see if Guillermo would chuck me the STL for that, so I can print it this big and get Blood Type Ben to paint it up ready for the studio. So you've got those stretch goals, which is brilliant, but they've got extras, which I absolutely love. The parcel arrived, I sat in the lounge, I opened up the box, Tiff was like, "Oh, what's this?" And I was like, "I don't know, let's have a look." And then we saw this turtle wizard, and she was like, "That's amazing, what is that?" And I was like, "I do not know, it looks like a wizard turtle." And it is a tortizard. So for €8, and this is something else, the add-ons are actually really reasonably priced. In fact, you can add, I believe, skinks on for €4 a piece. So if you want to go from 8 to 10, it's only going to cost you 8 more. Tortizard. So you got a turtle tortoise wizard, and he's just flying around on smoke. I thought it was a brilliant little sculpt, and this is something that's really cool. You get the core team, and then you've got the option to add on extra things to just like pad out. So if you just want a really good team, you can just get the core team. But if you want to go full in, then you've got a great coach there as well, which kind of makes me think of the Dinosaurs TV show. You've got the apothecary, you've got some cool star players. So I feel like some of the star players we saw before on the Amazon team, I don't know if Boax was on there, but Boax, you've got a great little lizard, snake boy. You've got Glup Drown for your Glottal Stop Croxagore star player. You've got, I'm not even going to say that one. I'm not even going to say that. You've got Saurus star player there as well. And this one, I think we've got in the pile to look at. We've got Estrella Venenosa. Venemosa? Venemosa. I'm going to go with Venemosa. Really cool take on Frog Lady. That she's bouncing around on the frog as opposed to having the frog all over her. Really cool, and a pretty horrifying voodoo style mask as well. So it's a really cool take on a star player. I got it and I was like, is Madcap Migs back? No, that is Frog Lady. And then you've got Dribblador and Peaceador, your 2 skink star players. And then you've got the Zote. And then you've got generic star players. So there's a ton of stuff that you can add to your Kickstarter as well. A ton of great star players. And then you've got a ton of their other teams. So the Amazon team was spectacular. And Ben's just painted up one of their Dark Elf teams as a commission, and it is very, very, very nice. So as far as the Kickstarter goes, €75 will get you the team and the stretch goals. I think there's going to be, I think you've got to add some other bits there. The tortoise wizard is a particular favorite of mine. So anyway, that's the Kickstarter. Should be going live on Friday the 24th. Looks like it's going to be open for a couple of weeks, which is a good amount of time. We will track it on the podcast, obviously. But let's look at some models. Okay, so when it comes to models, we've got a few packs to open, and we'll start with the skinks. We're not going to look at every single model, but what we will do is look at how they kind of come. Plastic clamshell, several layers of foam normally, and you've got your models nice and secure in there. So out of all of these packs, I didn't have a single model which was broken, which was wonderful. I mean, I may have missed a couple of bits, but I don't know. I whacked them all out on the table and was like, right, let's see what we've got. Let's see how, see if everything's damaged, if there's anything, you know, whoa, we want to call out on stream. But there isn't, there's my boy. There's my boy. So I've got a little red light here to try and help just glimmer some of the detail. So I believe these are early print versions, and what's going to happen is they're going to be cast resin based off this. It's based off the fact that Kickstarter says that they are cast, and that's what we've seen Waia Games do before. Dude, the sculpting is fantastic. Now, we've seen a lot of Lizardmen teams kicking around, but this one is... it's really cool. There's no gimmick here. This is not a cartoony version of a Lizardman team. This is not a oversized heads, undersized body kind of chibi team. This is a real Lizardman team with a slightly different take, but it fits in with the Games Workshop world without being a copy of the Games Workshop team. It's a couple of chameleon players that are just doing chameleon things. I've lost the other chameleon. He's probably, I probably primed him because I was like, ooh, let's paint him. So that is the chameleon. We will do a couple of scale checks as we go, just so you know. So Black Orc here from the Bucks. These two teams may end up facing against each other in the Bonehead Championship next year. We'll have to see. So Chameleon Skink being scale 2, size 2, sorry, against a Black Orc there at size 4 is absolutely perfect. And while we've got the Black Orc there, we'll grab one of the Skinky boys. Let's grab, have I got a headdress? I've got a headdress one primed, so let's grab this lad here. And we'll rotate the model, and you can see, let's get him in focus. You can see we've got great face detail, loads of great scales. You've got these little metallic pendants there, which just... this is a really cool thing. You've got the levels of detail there that it's not going to take you a billion years to paint. But if you are a very good painter, if you enjoy painting Lizardmen, Andy Burridge, I'm looking at you, you can pick out all these scales, you can pick out all the feathers, you can pick out all the medallions that he's got there. You know, this guy's clearly afraid of flying. Black Orc versus Skink. Black Orc is giant, Skink is fast. You okay, Topolo? Okay, next up, let's have a look at some of the Sauruses. Let's gently dump them out on the desk and recycle that. That's going to have woken up my pregnant wife, I imagine. So, whoopsie. Right, here we go. We have got a Saurus. Okay, this is the face style that I was talking about. You can see a couple of little bits of stringing here from the models where these are pre-production prints. If this came like this with the tiny bits of flash and supports that are on it, I wouldn't care at all. Straight up, wouldn't care. The quality of this is brilliant already. And the design. So, I'm kind of feeling old at the moment, saying I'm a child of an 80s, child of the 80s. And do you know what? One of the best thing about being in the 80s, other than Dolph Lundgren movies, was growing up and having wicked Saturday morning cartoons. And we've got what I think is a perfect hybrid between the 5th edition Lizardmen team, a 5th edition Lizardmen army from Warhammer, and a Saturday morning cartoon. This is superb. So I said that this team is not overly cartoony, and it's not, but you've got that kind of semi-lizard, semi-dragon style that plays out across all of these Sauruses, which means, again, they are going to be an absolute delight to paint. And that is why this team has rocketed forward. And if we end up having lizards in the Bonehead Championship this year, it will be this team. There you go, you've got another one. Because they are just, it's so unique while staying within just Lizardmen. Like, it's like, they're kind of like dragonborn blockers, which in itself has its own charm. And they are big lads. They're not gigantic to the point where they are going to dwarf a big guy, but you put them on a base and you line them up against another player, they are going to stand out as a strength 4 blocker, which is exactly what you want your strength 4 blockers to do. And here's the other chameleon. I thought I'd lost him. I thought I'd lost you. Love this guy. Right, before we jump into the other pieces, we got some star players to look at. It's the Turtle Wizard. So this is the model that I was looking through. It was the first one. I was like, why is this? What is this? Tiff was like, that is cool. Why is this? What is this? And I said, that looks awfully like a tortoise wizard. But actually, I said turtle because I am not well versed in the differences. But I feel like either of them are rarely spellcasters. But that is a really cool little extra model. So if you're going for a lizard wizard on your team, it's a very cool way to do it. Actually, while we're here, I've got the star players ready to go, or a few of the star players. Guillermo sent us a bunch, but I don't want to give them all away. Here we go. So I think this is the Saurus Blocker star player with the name that I will not try and pronounce. It used to be what? Was it Anky Panky? Or Snibbly? But he is the Saurus star player, so actually very, very, very cool. And you've got the proper... This is if the design aesthetic for your team is Dragonborn meets Lizardmen, this is Dragonborn meets Lizardmen meets the Predator. You've got the Predator Gauntlet, you've got the Predator Mandibles, and I think that that is an excellent design choice. Now, there are no rules currently in Blood Bowl for a star player Saurus Blocker. You just have to make him. So you can use mercenary rules, or you just promote one of your Sauruses. And this is the Snake Lad. Again, a very, very, very cool sculpt. Size-wise, I think he's actually quite decent. The snake dudes are only strength 3, and actually this guy is sized really, really, really well. Some nice detail there. Some great feather and some kind of spikes on the shoulder. This whole team has got some really nice texturing. So again, if you're willing to pick out the scales, this will reward you. If you are willing to do a cheeky dry brush or maybe some contrast, this model will reward you. And let me tell you, that is exactly the kind of painting I'm in the market for. Right, one more before I show off the primed models because they're just so good. And this is Frog Lady, or Lady on Frog. And again, this was probably the other model. When I opened the pack, I was like, what? This is really cool. Like, don't get me wrong. Opening the pack and seeing the Croxagore, I was like, hey, here we go. But this was just a really cool, different take on a star player. You look at her and you're like, Frog Lady? Frog Lady. That's literally her name. So, big, big, big tick. And that one might be a cheeky little painting treat for myself. Okay, so what I wanted to do to show off some of the detail was just... got 3 of them, based them up, primed and white, just to pick out the detail. I find that this is the best way to do it for print to pictures, and I thought this would be a very effective way to show off the models themselves. So I grabbed one of the skinks. It's just on a 32mm round base with a bit of brute fun debris, and it is going to take absolutely no time at all to paint this up. Like I said, ton of great texture, but it's not a complex model. It's not overly complex, and again, it just rings true of the older Warhammer style, where you've got lizard man with some kind of tribal armor or tribal like decorations, and I think it's absolutely wicked. Like, the skinks are great, beautiful sizing as well, and at the beginning of the video you would have seen them on the swirly plate, and do you know what? Even the skinks in this team are really cool, and you want that with a team that focuses or relies heavily on the skinks, because they're going to build character. Yeah, I know they're stunty players, but if you've played Blood Bowl, you know that the 2 biggest stars in Blood Bowl are your big guy when he does things properly, and your stunty players when they overachieve, and skinks are stunty players that will overachieve. Now we've got one of the Sauruses here, and again you can see chunky armor, chunky tail spikes. One thing I think is really clever about a lot of these models, just double checking them all not to make sure I'm not telling porkies. Great thing about the overhead camera, you can get the kind of the cylinder, okay? Blood Bowl's normally played on a 34mm pitch. If you're still playing on the older 25mm, upgrade, because it's going to make things a lot easier for you with all the teams coming out of the new scale. But with the tail swirling in, and in a second when we look at the Croxagore, you'll see the same thing. Not only do you get to paint it, so that actually the tail matters if you are looking at the profile of the model, but if you were looking top down, it doesn't do what I think some of the Games Workshop ones are, which is, cool, I'll move my Lizardman and then I'll turn it. Nothing happens. Do that with the Games Workshop one, your models are going to get intertwined and it's going to be absolute bedlam. So, really like that. And the same is true for the Croxagore. Oh, and I love this model. So you may see a couple of tiny supports. Again, this is a pre-production model, but and I've not cleaned them up very well because I was just too excited to show off the detail. But dude, look at this. We have got, do you know what? We've gone a little bit further. We've got Dragonborn crossed with 5th edition Lizardmen because this smacks of the older Games Workshop metal Croxagores mixed in with a cheeky bit of Digimon. Like, this guy looks like Metal Croxagon because it's fantastic. He is a chunky boy. I've got him on a 40mm base. I think he's going to need a 40mm base. You could probably fit him on a 32, but at 40mm, he deserves a 40mm. This is an absolute monster Crox, and it's just fantastic. Size-wise, grab the Black Orc. This guy towers over the Black Orc while staying within a pretty reasonable 40mm circle. Yeah, his tail is sticking out a bit, so if you do the old spin and flick, it's not too bad, actually. It's still better than some of the Games Workshop guys. This model is just wonderful, and it's just the line Croxagore, and it is just brilliant. Okay, so there you have it. Waia Games, new team. Going live on Kickstarter this week. Very reasonable price for unreasonably good models. It's so nice to get a physical team that rocks up. You glue it to the base, you prime it, and you are already proud to have it. So I am really genuinely smitten with this. You see a Lizardman team and you think, there's already half a dozen Lizardmen team out there. I think if you like lizards, you will like this team. And if you don't have a Lizardman team, this team might be the one that tricks you into getting it. And you know what? Lizards are a brilliant team. So, brilliant team for a brilliant roster from a pretty brilliant company. I'm really impressed with this, and it's so nice. It was so good that I actually got the overhead camera set up for the first time in months. So, thanks to Guillermo, I can do some printer pictures as well. So, love this. Check it out on Kickstarter, and a big thank you to them for shipping this over so that we could get our eyes on it, because this is going on the channel. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy Croxagoring. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to support the channel even further, please like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Or come join us on YouTube Members or in Patreon, where you can get exclusive access to some content, some loot, early access to basically everything we do, as well as regular competitions. Or you can pick up some Bonehead Podcast loot either on our website at boneheadpodcast.com. We've got the Dungeon Bowl things, we've got tokens and stuff like that, or on our Spreadshirt site as well. Everything you do just helps us make more content and hopefully do it of better quality. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Happy blocking.